So Christmas is coming up.
The goose is getting fat.
Whoa. If you're anxious, you don't run around going, I don't know what to do.
No, she was fine, but she definitely... All right, right here. Right here.
I didn't know what you were doing.
I know.
Why'd you cut me off and just like start your own story? I was in the middle of saying something.
You're making me anxious right now.
I'm about to make you anxious.
Then we come together, you combine those, and now who gets a real great present? Our poor children, right? And that sucks.
Merry Christmas.
And all this crap that has gone on. I'm selfish. She's high maintenance. I'm whatever. She's whatever.
Nice car. I drove it down from the Bahamas. Not really. The Bahamas are islands. Hello and welcome to the Anatomy of Marriage podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
And my name is Seth.
Oh,
okay then.
And today we're talking about
anxiety.
Yeah.
And this is going to be the first of a 2-part, maybe 3-part series, and it will walk you through tons of stuff that we've been going through, and it's going to be clinical. It's going to be theoretical.
I'm not sure there's a 3-part series, but go ahead.
Or a 2-part series. It's going to be clinical, theoretical, vulnerable, and real. So hopefully it will benefit you.
Mm-hmm. But before we start, let's read the review of the day, which was hilarious because Seth's like, oh, I'll just pick the latest one.
Get a load of this.
And then he started reading it and he got upset.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so it says, so honest is so great, 5 stars. I freaking love this show. Mel and Seth dive deep and discuss the good and the not so good of marriage. They openly and honestly talk about issues that arise in their own marriage as well as other marriages and actionable steps on how to begin to fix those issues. They even have free tools to help you on their website. Because let's be honest, not every spouse can be totally awesome and wonderful all the time, except Mel, because she's the mom.
Oh my goodness.
I think I speak for a lot of listeners when I say you guys rock. Keep up the good work. And is it weird that I read this whole thing in my head in Mel's voice as I typed it out? Yes it is. Laugh out loud. I love it and I do rock.
I did LOL. And the funny thing is, I don't know if that writer is a male or female, but it'd be really funny if it was a male and it's like, oh, Melody's awesome, and he is reading it in your female voice. That'd be really funny.
Either way, thank you so much for the review.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I feel great.
Mm-hmm.
And if you haven't reviewed the podcast yet and you like the show, please go ahead and do that on iTunes. Leave a rating and a review. It helps people find the show, know if it's worth listening to, and spreads the word. So
spreads the word.
So anyway, let's dive into this episode. And do you want to start out with the craziness that made this episode come to be? Because it's a really weird story.
Yeah, it is a really interesting story. And today I found a quote by Sigmund Freud, the father of psychodynamic theory, psychoanalytic theory. And he says there are mistakes. He says there are no mistakes, period, right? And of course, if you didn't understand and know how to apply that, you'd be like, that is stupid. There's tons of mistakes every day. That's the stupidest quote I've ever heard, right? However, if you choose to dive in a little bit deeper and look into it, the quote, there are no mistakes, can be literally applied to almost everything. And
from like a learning standpoint.
From a learning standpoint, yeah. And that takes a different mindset, actually.
So I want to share the mistake that Seth is talking about.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because, so Christmas is coming up, and this is going to sound...
The goose is getting fat.
Whoa. He was just impersonating me doing a voice that I did when we first got married. So that's why that was so funny, I think,
was really
to you.
Funny. I got the squinky eye on that one.
You did get the squinky eye. So anyway, Christmas is coming up. And when we were very first married, like the first months that we were married, I got, as a surprise for Seth, our first dog, Skid.
Yes.
And Seth didn't want a dog. And I got one from my coworker for like $20. And Skid was the best dog.
He was so sweet
on the planet, and he was like our first baby. And Seth didn't like him at first, or didn't like him.
No, I liked him. I was just
he just didn't want
in
one.
grad school. This is a lot.
Yeah. So then anyway, now fast forward, Skid passed away a couple years ago. We have
on my birthday,
on his birthday, and then we have Ellie now, who is currently dying from cancer, who we've only had for 2 years. We got her for free, and she was an older dog,
right.
But she has been like the best. She's been such a gift to our family and beautiful, wonderful, kind, sweet dog. But she's dying. She's got a huge tumor and there's nothing we can do. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? This is going to be such a fun Christmas gift. I'm going to find a puppy for our family. And I'm not going to tell Seth, but I asked Seth like a bunch, hey, can we get a dog? Let's talk about getting a dog so that the transition is easier for the kids and maybe Ellie will enjoy a puppy and all these things. So long story short, I made sure Seth was okay with the idea of getting a dog. And then I went and got a dog like for free on Facebook. So I got a dog, a beautiful little girl named Tinkerbell. And was like this mutt, beautiful, looked like a tiger, and brought her home. And the kids were happy and I was happy.
Which we named Tina.
Well, we called her Tina. Her name was Tinkerbell. But so Seth came home and to all appearances seemed okay and went with it.
Right, because in my head, I was like, yes, we talked about this. The kids love it. Melanie did a great thing, and I was okay with it. Outwardly, right? There was a part of me that was inside was like, oh my goodness, kind of thing, and it kept on bothering me more and more and more. And it wasn't.
But this was just the first day. Literally the first day.
Right.
So we had everything set up because we already have a dog. So we've got dog stuff. So we had like a kennel and all this stuff. And so then, puppies are a lot of work. So it was like, trying to get the kids used to her. And she was super, super skittish. So it was extra work, more than normal. But that night we went to bed. And it was like the puppy was crying. And I said, like, this is going to be a hard transition. We'll figure it out. No big deal. But we're laying in bed and it was like 1 a.m.
Well, let me paint. So we had the dog and we had it for a couple of hours because we went to bed late and we were playing. And like Melanie said, the dog was skittish and it was like you couldn't approach it. You couldn't connect with it like you would a normal puppy that would like lick you and kind of gnaw on your fingers and stuff like that. The dog was like literally really scared of everybody except for Melanie. And I took on that anxiety. And I remember even before we went to bed and stuff, I was like, my heart was beating really fast. It was like I was having a mini panic attack. And I was like, what is the deal?
But he didn't
I'm
say
not
any of
mad.
that.
I'm not like, this is so stupid. This isn't anything. It was more of an internal, oh my goodness, there's really strong feelings coming up. And I didn't know what they were. I knew I had to talk about them. And however, I knew that when I talked about them, Melanie may interpret it really not like I'm trying to, well, not like it was intended, right? So we go to bed that night. Go ahead.
Oh, we go to bed and then Seth was just like, hey, I'm not trying to be weird, but like when I saw the dog, I had like this anxiety attack or like a panic attack.
Right.
And he was like, I'm not upset at you. I understand all this stuff, but I really feel like, what did you even say? Like it just really, 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 really stressed Seth out is basically what he was saying to me. So then we went to bed trying to sleep. And I literally, when he told me that, it was like all of the anxiety that he felt just like, I don't even know, like tsunami'd onto me. And I just was laying there just like, I was for literally like the next 45 minutes or hour or whatever, I was like fighting off a panic attack, which is like, what is going on? Like, I'm happy with the dog. I'm happy with the situation. It's fine. I don't know. I'm not like, Seth isn't even mad. Like, why am I feeling so weird about this?
Right.
So then that's when we got up at like 1.
Well,
we never even went to bed at 1.
The dog woke us up, right? So there are no mistakes. This dog who turned our house into a crazy house for a little while.
That's negative. I thought she was fine.
No, she was fine, but she definitely
just continue.
Uprooted some stuff, right? So there are no mistakes. This dog comes along. It wakes us up, which facilitates an entire hour-long midnight, early morning conversation that we discovered a whole lot about ourselves and our marriage, right?
Yeah, and basically it was like Seth was saying this when the dog comes in and I felt this way and I had this like anxiety about it, and then we're like, and then I kind of connected the dots of like, well, why are you worried about it? It's just going to be another thing. Like skid was a thing and it's just what it is. And then you said something like, I've lived my entire life that way, like worried about stuff. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Feeling overwhelmed with things.
Yeah.
Feeling like things are too much. However, really taking care of business and performing other things at a high level, right? So faking it until I make it kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess. But
I don't remember what I said that night, but that's a similar idea.
But yeah, he basically was like, I've lived my entire life that way. So then I started going like, wait, so if he's saying getting a new, like when I got the dog, I accepted it's going to pee on the floor. It's going to bite some furniture and chew some stuff up. It's going to be a puppy. Like that is what's going to happen. But what you were saying to me was all out of fear. Like it's going to be bad. It's not going to be okay. Right. Like, and everything that you said was like a list of all the bad things. Hold on. So you gave me a list of all the bad things.
Right.
And then it sort of like turned a light switch on in my brain. I was like, wait, Seth does that to a lot. Like, cause you said I've lived my entire life that way. And I was like, okay, well, let me like go back into the history of our marriage and apply this filter of anxiety to the things that we've experienced together.
Right.
And it literally is like, if you overlay generalized anxiety disorder on our entire marriage, it's like the whole thing lights up. Like all the times when Seth was unkind to me, and so much of it was from this,
right,
essentially this foundation of anxiety. But we didn't know it. We had no clue.
From a family of origin. And what is so interesting is we both have these things. Like we talked about, oh my goodness, that's why my dad, or that's why certain family members were like that for me growing up. No wonder I'm like that. And then we talked about Melanie's family of origin, and like it can be explained this way. Have you ever had a friend or just talk to yourself about like, oh, well, that's just kind of what I do, right? Well, that's just me, right? If you really break that down, that behavior is not, oh, well, that's just what I do. I'm predisposed to that. That may be a maladaptive reaction to some sort of mild trauma, baby trauma, and the culmination of those traumas create who you are, right? So we had this huge, long conversation about that, and can finally name what it is in our relationship. It's not, oh, I was a jerk and just being a douche the whole time. Melanie has certain things too that she would say, oh, that's just who I am, or that's just how, my family members are. But that, I'm not saying that's an excuse. I'm saying, like, as a therapist, as a clinical therapist for 12 years, someone knowing it academically and also living it, I'm going to say, no, we are more than our anxieties. We are more than our maladaptive reaction. In fact, let me just read the brief definition of generalized anxiety disorder and some of the symptoms of it. Muscle tension, gastrointestinal discomfort, irritability, fatigue, edginess, restlessness, sleep difficulties. And they also include excessive anxiety and worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months concerning a number of events. The individual finds it difficult to control the worry, restlessness, feeling keyed up, being on edge, like that presented in me, like always having to do something, being kind of discontent with something, like chasing after that next big thing or whatever, not just being present and sitting with Melanie. And having kids and getting married just amps that up so much more. Let's see. The anxiety, worry, or physical symptoms cause clinically significant distress or impairment in important areas of functioning. This would be almost in every aspect of our marriage. Our sex lives. Do we talk to one another? Can we sit and do nothing with one another? Do we agree on certain things? Of course, there's normal marriage things, but anxiety exacerbates everything that could potentially go wrong in certain situations or be an issue. And that is the water that we've swam in forever. And that one night was like, holy crap, I'm a fish. All this is water. Okay, now let's do something about it, right?
Yeah. And I want to talk about what that anxiety looked like because when I think of it from my perspective of you saying, oh, I've lived my whole life like that. Like I said, I went back into the history of our marriage in my mind and was like, okay, let's think about the times that I maybe misinterpreted Seth as being kind of a jerk. And really what he was doing was he was acting from a space of anxiousness, right?
I was trying to keep my ass together. It was like all I could do was to like, no, don't be a jerk. That's stupid. She's a nice woman. Blah blah blah. All this stuff.
Why'd you cut me off and just like start your own story? I was in the middle of saying something.
You're making me anxious right now.
I'm about to make you anxious. But so in our marriage, the ways that it sort of manifested was in things like Seth. It was like we talked about way back in season 1 with Matt, where you're hypercritical. Your critical nature is like, it really should be the sort of red flag of your anxiety, because every time you've been critical, it is from a foundation of I'm afraid. So you'll be like the time when we were at QFC and we were dating and I sat on the floor.
I thought of that today too.
And like you lost your mind. You were like,
no, hold on. I didn't lose my mind.
I mean, you just thought it was the grossest thing ever. You were like, get off the floor. Oh, I'm going to die. And there was like literally no one else in the store.
I didn't lose my mind. I didn't freak out. I said, what are you doing? People don't do that. Get up. And
yes.
so I didn't lose my mind.
I just mean like you were weird about it.
Miss Drama.
I like drama. Studied drama.
Really? Oh, wow.
But so...
Okay, yes, continue on that.
But like him not being like, oh, I don't like that you're sitting on the floor. It was, nobody does that. People don't do that. And so he would... So it would be... There was a slight difference in the way he communicated what these things were. Another example is like kids and their like our kids' clothing. Not that you're even very good at dressing the kids, but you actually don't do something proactively. You just, if they wear something you disapprove of, you don't say, I don't like those shoes. You say something like, those shoes are what nerdy kids wear, or something like that.
No, I don't.
You don't say that to the kids, but you say that to me when I go shoe shopping.
Hold on. I used to say these things.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Ago,
that's
right?
what I'm saying.
Oh, okay. It's not current.
No,
I saw that eye roll to the
you
camera.
should, because you can't focus.
Are you going to edit all my good words out and just like do your...
Yeah, bad thinking EMDR episode.
Anyway.
So another way is telling other people how to behave. Like not just me, not just normal people don't sit on the floor, but like with my mom, you would be like, she can't do that with the kids. And then you'd like write her an email about it. And it was like all fear-based,
right?
Out of just a fear. Like if this thing continues, if Melanie sits on the floor, what are people going to think about me? And my parents are going to think I'm a failure, and like all these weird little things. So again, when I put the filter of anxiety over the history of our marriage, it was like, oh, this actually is what's going on.
It wasn't me attacking you as a human and character and me being just like a huge crazy person. It was the anxiety speaking kind of thing. It's almost like, when you talk to a drunk person or a high person, they're like, okay, knock, knock. You're not home. I'm speaking to the person that's just wasted right now.
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
Different person.
Yeah. And so it's, but I wanted to talk about what it looked like through the course of our marriage, because I would have never assumed that anxiety had anything to do with those things. I just thought, oh, well, he's just really judgmental. But it was like, you were afraid that if I continued to sit on the floor, somehow I would become, I don't even know. I don't know, but a lot of it was fear.
So I have a theory about this. In one of the last episodes, we talked about our friend Elle and you and another coworker, and how people have told all three of you guys, like, oh, well, you're just mean, right? You're mean. And I think that sometimes we use those explanations of ourselves and we just accept that, like, oh, I have a mean nature, a mean character, but I'm really nice, but just don't cross me or I'll, mess you up or whatever. That is also a maladaptive reaction and also a maladaptive identity, because it's much easier to say, oh, I'm just a mean person, and be mean to other people who I think deserve my meanness.
Are you talking about anxiety right now?
Wait a minute.
Okay.
That is a manifestation of anxiety, right?
Being mean?
Yes. Or being hypercritical, or being controlling, or being a whole host of other things. So
you're saying, okay, That's very
Are you following?
confusing. I understand what you're saying, but in my scenario, I don't think I'm mean because I'm anxious.
No. Okay.
But
so
I get what you're saying.
Right.
Like, so you're saying anxiety does not. So like this, like if drunkenness looks a certain way.
Yes.
If you're drunk, you are tipsy and you fall over and you slur your speech and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. If you're anxious, you don't run around going, I don't know what to do. Like
Right.
it sometimes when you're anxious, you actually are rude or you're judgmental or
Yeah.
it can
And then-
manifest in a bunch of different
and
ways.
then that becomes a pattern. Maybe it starts in high school or wherever wherever the thing happened. I have one of my favorite mentors and counselors says something happened in somebody's story. It's like something happened. That was like the second when this mean or anxious or whatever identity began to take form. And then we get that identity, we take on that identity when we're young, teen years, in college, 20s, whatever. And then we get married, it just almost gets worse and worse and worse kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Am I making sense here?
Yeah. It's just a little bit confusing to me the way you
well,
worded it. But
it's so, just like family of origin, this is such a complicated topic.
yeah. Well, let me talk to that really quick because I do understand what you're saying. And this goes back to the dog.
Yeah.
And this very much ties into this whole thing. So getting Tinkerbell, Tina, like I didn't know when I picked her up that she was like skittish, right? I hadn't heard that from the previous owner. And so when I got her, I saw her mother. So the dog's actual mom was there when I picked up the dog, and she was terrified. She like pulled away. She was just like, definitely couldn't pet her.
Like
she was trying to
like a beat dog.
Yeah,
Everybody's
trying
seen
to-
a dog that's been beaten and
she was trying to hide behind the owner, like all this stuff. And the owner was like, oh yeah, she's really skittish. When I got her, she was that way. And so I was like, oh, that's, a thing I noted. Then I got in the car, drove home, and the puppy was exactly like the mom. And the first thing I thought was weird. Like this puppy has not been abused. It is literally mimicking. It's just parroting what its mother does.
Yes.
Because that is the security blanket. The security blanket is afraid. The security blanket does this. So the dog looks at the mom and goes, oh, I'm supposed to do this.
Yeah, mom
right?
does it. I don't
yeah.
want to. Right.
When someone comes to mom, she hides and tucks her tail. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. And I literally had this moment of like, oh,
Eureka.
family of origin. Like that is her university of, family stuff. What is
That's
it?
right.
University of family stuff.
I don't know.
whatever Dr. Parrott said. But you're like, this dog literally just copied everything that its mother did.
Right.
And it wasn't actually really genuinely afraid of me.
The dog had, I'm assuming the Tina, because she was only like 3 months old,
Yeah.
super young, she probably had no trauma.
No,
Right?
no.
Yet she wasn't beaten. She wasn't almost hit by a car. She wasn't anything. She wasn't malnourished. She wasn't anything, right? She was only doing what she saw, what she learned.
Yeah.
And think about this. As a puppy, when you're born and up to 3 months and even longer for a puppy, those are very formative years, right? So think in the family of origin context, all the research that we know, like the first 1 through 5 years, that there's some literature out there that says
That
that
shapes you.
shapes your entire life, right?
Yeah.
That's debatable, and I kind of don't agree with it. However, just think about how strong that is. What I saw my mom doing, what I saw my
Yes.
dad doing.
So let me finish now. So in that whole story, what I came to realize with the dog is that she was, and the reason we actually ended up giving her back to the owner because she was so afraid of everyone else except for me. But what I was watching her do was that her fear would feed itself and make her afraid even when she wasn't like scared. So she would be happily running around the backyard, which it would only happen like 4 times over the course of 3.5 days. So and I mean 4 like 30-second moments that she actually ran across the yard not feeling scared, but she'd be really, really, really happy. Something would make a noise, like a leaf would fall or a stick would break, and she'd immediately tuck her tail under and run and be twice as scared as if she had never run around the yard. So she was training herself. The freedom.
Oh, I shouldn't have ran down there. run back as
the
fast
freedom
as I can.
of being over there is far too scary. I'm going to go back and now I'm twice as afraid. I'm more scared. And then the same thing was happening with the kids where even though she was okay with me, I had to like show her that I was okay with the kids. And then she would try to like, she would be like, oh, okay, I should try to be okay with this. But then the second something went wrong, it was like it doubled down all of her efforts of being afraid is safer, smarter, better. I should always be afraid.
That's right.
And here's why I think all of that is so important and was very interesting to watch was that I could have, of course, trained that out of her, but it would have taken like literally years.
A lot.
And consistent holding of her hand and being like, this is all okay. Like, just, I don't know what the word is, but like the most amount of attention, affection, work, all of that, which it's not to say that I didn't want to do that. And that's not even the point of this whole conversation.
You even did a really good job training her. You taught her to sit.
I mean, she was doing really well. But then what I realized was that is what therapy is.
Yeah.
Like that dog needed therapy.
Yes.
Right. And so, but there was another element too, where like, she wasn't bonding with the kids because she was afraid, and the kids are loud and they aren't going to control themselves.
Okay. So this is interesting. And we've talked about attachment before, my own attachment, our attachment. We did not attach with that dog whatsoever.
No, I did. I mean,
you did, right? But we tried, the kids tried, and it's a dog, so it's different because it's a dog, but there are a lot of parallels between bonding and attachment with the dog, and also bonding and attachment with people, with married couples, with new friends,
we
with
could
children.
have chose to keep her, and guarantee you the kids would have tolerated her.
We could have.
Yeah.
Yes.
And but that's not what we don't want. I didn't want that for her or for us. Cause
I think I didn't want it for us mainly than for her. I have no ill feelings towards a dog, right? However, and this is going to be to the second or one of the other points of the story, that would have came at a really high price to our marriage, right? We've talked about all our stuff of the summer and all this stuff, and it just wasn't a wise choice. And that's part of how my anxiety was manifesting the night you brought it home. It's like, this isn't a wise choice right now. I appreciate it, blah, blah, all this stuff. And we have reacted in a similar way, and this is really interesting. So when there is a blip in the homeostatic loop, right? A blip that causes anxiety or fear or anything else, the system will react to that. And I can think of one other instance recently that our system has acted that way. Like you bringing the dog home gave us both like very mild panic attacks, right? We took on, remember that episode, the Bowen Family Systems episode we talked about like multi-generational stuff and like we take on certain things.
Ego mass.
Yeah. Ooh, you must be a psychotherapist.
Yep.
I thought you were going to say something funny. Anyway, we took on the dog's anxiety. How about this? I took on the dog's anxiety. I was already kind of nervous anyway. I took on the dog's anxiety. Then you took on my and the dog's anxiety, right? And there's another instance that happened, I don't know, maybe a year ago where we had somebody stay with us. They were an anxious person, and we both like could feel it in our spirits. Like Melanie had almost a full-blown panic attack that night. Like, and we walked through it, and I was like, okay, I wasn't in panic mode. I was in like fight mode almost. But the point of it is our system took on the anxiety of another system. And I'm sure listeners have done that before. Like, whoa, this person is just like wacky. I'm feeling like totally unsettled. We get that vibe or whatever, you know, that's us are just knowing inherently something's not right here. I need to do something to keep my homeostasis and my family's homeostasis at bay. What am I going to do? Sometimes we don't do anything and it's fight or flight. It comes out as a panic attack or an argument or whatever, right? So we really need to think about that concept as we're raising our children, as we're in relation to one another. Are we bringing other crap from outside back home into the marriage? You know, that could be another whole episode of like transitioning, you know, kind of thing. But that is really something to be aware of.
Yeah, I think that with the anxiety piece that we figured out with the dog, what I wish that I had known years ago, and what I wish that someone had sort of said to do, was to really sit down and assess the behaviors of you or me, whatever, through a different filter. Like, because behaviors aren't always indicative of the problem you think that they are caused by. So let's say
down for me.
So let's say I have stomach pain. That could be about 1,000 things, right?
Yes.
That could be I ate bad lettuce. I ate bad romaine on Thanksgiving. Or I ate Matt's cut off fingertip in the turkey, which really happened. Or I have appendicitis, or my, something has ruptured, or
there's an actual biological problem.
But
right?
there's about 50 things it could be.
Yes.
Not one.
Yes.
So a stomach ache is a presentation that no doctor goes, oh, stomach ache, appendicitis. They run all these different tests to figure out what it could possibly be.
Yes.
So that's what I wish had been had happened with us. With like, we would go to our counseling sessions at church, and I'd be like, yeah, Seth says this and this and that about me, and the therapist would be like, how come you're not nice to your wife?
Right.
They wouldn't be like, why is he saying these? Let me connect the dots between these comments. Because when I looked back at it with anxiety as a filter, I'm like, all he was doing was being afraid of an outcome of anything, whether that's the kids can't look this way, people will think we're dumb, or we can't have this car, people will think we're this. And so when you look at it through the filter of anxiety, you go, oh, that's all he was doing.
Right.
And so that's something I wish that had, like, I would encourage people to do, like, assess if you're in a situation in your marriage or your relationship, look at the behavioral thing that's like, look at the stomach ache. And don't assume that it's appendicitis. You know what I mean?
Right. So this is what I have two things. But do you remember, like, when I was going through grad school, and
I do remember when you were going through grad school.
Okay. I hope so. And I was misguided on some of the questions that I would ask you, because I was learning all this stuff about the DSM-4 and all, different diagnoses and family systems and stuff like that. And I was learning about all of this stuff, how anxiety and other mental health disorders can manifest, right? And tons of people manifest their mental dis-ease through physical symptoms, right? I have a stomach ache all the time. And this is so prevalent with kids, right?
Yeah.
Okay, think about our own kid, Hattie.
Don't get off topic. What were you telling me about
I'm
being
not. I'm
in
giving
school?
an example. Think about Hattie. Some kid maybe bully her or whatever, and she has a bad day. Guess what? That happens a couple times. She doesn't know how to verbalize it, but her body knows how to manifest it. Oh, I have a stomach ache. I don't want to go to school. There's a great book called The Body Keeps the Score about all of this, and it's fascinating. And I asked you, do you think that you get sick? What did I say? I know you remember it.
Do you think that you get sick all the time because you like the attention?
Right. So it wasn't like, oh, you're an attention hog, you're a drama queen, you're just faking it, right? It's like, I think that sometimes your anxiety may manifest itself of getting sick, and then in that feedback loop, in that world, when I'm sick, people talk to me more, people look at me more, I get attention more, right? So sure, I was like a baby therapist, didn't know S at the time. However, that question was a real question, and that is a real thing. And
so you're bringing that up just to exemplify a point?
To exemplify
and no,
a point.
I wasn't getting sick because I enjoyed attention. I fell off my deck and lost my spleen. My appendix got infected.
Not then. I didn't ask your, unconscious body, did you do this for,
but I mean,
did you do this on purpose?
Like the things you were saying I was getting sick about were like, no, that's called low blood sugar.
Right.
Like,
no,
that's
I'm
a diet issue.
I know. I'm owning it. And
but I do think, it's interesting, and I want to sort of wrap up on the idea too, where if you discover that maybe anxiety is something you are dealing with, there's lots of things you can do about it, which we're going to talk about in the next episode.
Yes.
But one of the things is we want to make sure that we don't have limiting beliefs about what this means about us, or that it has to control our entire life. Like there's something to be said for that dog that we bought. Tina could have been trained to not be an anxious dog at all. If you don't believe me, watch The Dog Whisperer.
Or go to therapy. There's so many similarities. in that.
Yeah. And but I did think it's important that people, it's not a lost cause if you discover something like that. Like you don't go, oh, my stomach hurts, appendicitis. Well, I'm dead. Like, no, you go get your appendix removed.
Right. You do something, you do something about it. And for me, like I want to I want to destigma mental health therapy, like as a therapist. Destigmatize mental health therapy as a therapist. If I get in a certain spot and go, oh, therapy, this is weird. That's my career. That's my profession. So I want to give you permission to go and look into it, talk to somebody about it. Don't have a fixed and closed mindset about that, because you actually really can untrain things and figure something out and go back. That's one of the things we talked about in the EMDR episode, and it is possible. And it is so freeing too. Like that night when the dog woke us up and we talked about all this stuff, it really changed things for us. It honestly changed things for us. Like we turned a corner, and all this crap that has gone on, I'm selfish, she's high maintenance, I'm whatever, she's whatever. The classic eye roll.
I didn't roll my eyes.
Anyway.
I have video evidence to prove it.
Yes. The discovery of the anxiety that we have is so refreshing almost. It just explains a lot of stuff, and now we can continue to dive into it deeper.
I do want to say too that you say anxiety that we have, and this is very, very important for people to understand that I think my anxiety is literally from Seth, because it has been this pattern. It's been a feedback loop, like with the dog. Like
right.
If I let my guard down, he will attack me for whatever the thing is. So then I learn, always keep your guard up. Always watch what you say. Don't ever let Seth see you be whatever. So it literally created an anxiety for me to maintain his homeostasis. Like it became my job to make sure that Seth was okay with things. And my whole family could tell you this, because like throughout the course of our marriage, it would be like, sorry, Mom, I can't let the kids do this because Seth doesn't like it. And she'd be like, what are you talking about? I'm like, he just doesn't. And it's going to be a problem if I let the kids go here or whatever that is. So, or like not eat organic food or whatever. Like there's been these little things over and over that were formed from your anxiety that I took on as my own shape of anxiety, right, and then put onto my family as another layer of anxiety. And we didn't even say this, the whole dog thing too.
Kids.
It really made us realize like, oh, our home is not calm because anxiety, I think, is manifesting itself throughout our children.
Right. So hold on. We can, if you want to talk about that, we can. However, this is not like, oh, I brought in all this anxiety and Melanie didn't have any, and now I just
had acute anxiety around flying and stuff.
Well, yeah, around flying, but I will say that is a manifestation of other things, right? Like,
sure, I'm saying in our marriage,
we both have individual anxiety that has looked like this for you, that's looked like this for me. Then we come together, you combine those, and now who gets a real great present? Our poor children, right? And that sucks.
Merry Christmas, idiots.
Well, I hate the fact of that. And it's like, now we know it. We're going to do everything that we can to repair that. Repair that. That was weird. I said it weird. To repair that and make it right? So tell me, and I think we have time still. Yeah, this is good. Tell me about what you were going to say about what the dog illustrated to you about our family and our kids and how we interact and how they interact to one another.
It was just weird because when we first brought Tina home, or when I first brought her home, and you weren't even home yet, it was just the kids. And I was like, okay, she's really afraid of everything, so we have to be super, super quiet. So like the house was almost silent because the kids were trying to just interact with this super fearful dog, right?
Yeah.
So the home is like silent, which is not our house, right? And
no, not at all. That's not our kids.
So it was weird because I'm like, I was manipulating their behavior so that they could be in relationship with this dog. And I was just sort of watching it, not thinking, I just didn't have any sort of profound thoughts. I was just, at the time, we hadn't had the anxiety conversation. And so I was just kind of noting it. And then like she was still not, like they would scare her on accident and then it would make her even more afraid of them. We just had a technical difficulty and our camera died.
And we're back.
But so the kids were all sort of like changing their behavior to accommodate the dog. And I just was watching it and noticing it, and we hadn't had the anxiety conversation yet. And then the next day, it was the next morning after we had the anxiety conversation, I think, or the next night, when the kids were just like insane and we couldn't get them to be quiet. Remember that?
And they weren't listening.
They weren't whatever.
And they would just make random noises over and over.
They always have. I mean, it's like,
which is kind of a kid
new
thing, but it's like.
But what we kind of realized was it's like, there's a tension between us. There's a tension between Seth and his own thoughts and feelings about stuff, and then between us, and then in our whatever. So our hunch is, and we could be wrong, that what?
It's not a wrong hunch. I will explain it through a family systems lens.
But our hunch is that our home feels very unrestful.
Yes.
Because of this sort of manifestation of anxiety through our children. And so that's going to be sort of where we're going with this bigger conversation in our life is why is this anxiety producing this sort of family, whatever? Because like I said, seeing the mom be scared and then watching the puppy be scared and being like, oh, this is like, she just learned it from her mom.
That's right.
And so the kids are just learning anxiety from us, and
they're learning,
but like underlying anxiety.
So they're not learning it. It's like part of your spirit, part of your being can go, something isn't right. I don't know what it is. And then that will manifest according to the kid's personality, disposition, genetic traits, all kinds of stuff, right? So in a dysfunctional family, a kid's manifestation could look like anything.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah.
And luckily we have the DSM-4 or DSM-5 now, and other ICD-9-10 that classify this kind of stuff. And I have different views on that, sure, but whatever. But it's predictable. It's happened before. Here are the best methods of treatment through empirical analysis, through observation, through all kinds of trials and stuff like that. And these treatments seem to work, kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So with that said, it's all very important. Mm-hmm. There are no mistakes. Everything matters. So when your spouse is saying something like, you shouldn't say always or never, of course, but if they say, you always do this, blah, take a look at that and say, what is it that she is saying that I always do? Mm-hmm. And why am I like this? What does she always do or never does, or some weird quirky thing that cannot be explained just by like, oh, well, that's just who they are or whatever. No, there are real reasons for stuff. And you and I, through the filter of anxiety, now get to deconstruct and go through all of these things towards a more intimate, meaningful, safe, attuned, fully actualized relationship, right? And if we can translate that down to our kids, then boom, we are golden. Will it take a long time? Of course. It'll take a really long time through work, through a constant growth mindset. However, we are getting there, and you're getting there just by realizing and listening to podcasts like ours and other great shows too. But there's not like an arrival. There's not an arrival. It's always a constant. You got to keep on hiking. You got to keep on going.
And the imagery that I think is sort of fitting for this, and you know, like those glasses that have different colored lenses, like some are red and some are blue and some are yellow. And
you mean like National Treasure 2 when they look at the Constitution?
Yes, thank you. That's a wonderful reference. But it reveals different colors in like a picture, right?
Yes.
So, or like the colorblind tests, like it'll be a 5 made out of dots that are certain colors. So I think of, that's how it felt like when I put the lens of the filter of anxiety over, like if our marriage was the Constitution, going along with your
I think it's National Treasure 1, actually.
National Treasure 1. If our marriage was the back of the Constitution and written in invisible ink,
right,
but I had like a lemon and some glasses or whatever they did to be able to read it, it like revealed a hidden message.
Yes.
It revealed like a hidden reason for all of these things that happened that otherwise I couldn't have seen. But so what I'm suggesting is, in relationships, in your marriage or whatever, there's conflict, there's strife or struggle, there's always been something going on. maybe have sort of like a set of these glasses, different colors. And maybe one is anxiety. Maybe one is past trauma. Maybe what's another one you can think of?
Depression.
That's a good.
I can't
Just
think of
anything like
yeah.
but take them and go, okay, if I put these glasses on and I look at the back of the Constitution, am I going to see anything? Maybe it's not depression. Okay, maybe it's not that. I'll put my anxiety ones on. Am I going to see anything? Will something stand out to me if I look at it through that lens? And I don't know. That just popped into my head, and I always like to share.
That's a great analogy.
But yeah, so I don't know. That might be helpful for some of you if you're dealing with that, to like
I hope so.
think of these different things. Because again, it's like a stomach ache does not always equal appendicitis, and it can't. And that is especially not how mental health works. Like relationship things, they're typically traced back to an origin, but definitely definitely isn't always the same origin, and the behavior, the stomach ache is not always indicative of the actual problem. It could be all sorts of different things.
That's right.
So yeah, that's the beginning of our anxiety conversation and journey, and our story with Tina, who was a great little pup, and we'll share.
We wish her well. You know what?
I want to share a little video of her.
But yeah, that'd be cool. I'm thankful that you got the dog. There are no mistakes. Things don't happen to us. They happen for us. You know, I could have been like, oh, woe is me, this dog is crazy, blah, blah. No, that actually happened for me, and I reframed it, right? So thank you, Tina. If you can hear me, some kennel in the sky.
She's not dead.
I know, she's not dead. Thank you for that, Tina.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for listening. We have 3 things. We are doing 2 events. The first one is on February 14th, Valentine's Day, the 2-year anniversary of our entire show. We're doing a live event with us and a couple other powerhouse marriage people in Dallas, Texas, and actually Keller, Texas, which I don't even know where that is.
It's northwest, I think, of Dallas.
That's right. But more information on that to follow. We're also doing another AOM Con event. That'll be an all-day, longer event in Chicago, hopefully on March 2nd, and that one will be fun. I'm really looking forward to that one.
That one's just going to be us.
Yeah, that's it's all day for us.
The one in Dallas is going to be fun. It's going to be like a hot date night, spicy date night.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be like super fun party. I think so far what we're wanting, I don't know that we're going to get it all. We want childcare available for parents.
Yes.
It's going to be like not super long, like 2 hours, 3 hours ish, but there's going to be like,
let's do some highlights. Salsa dancing, street tacos, DJ,
dance party, dance
right?
instruction,
and 4 really cool people in the marriage space, us and 3 other individual people. So it'll be rad.
Yeah. Should we just say who? We can't even say who they are yet.
Oh no,
they're super fun. Like, you know, one of them for sure already from the pod that you've heard. But yeah, so those are coming up. And also, if you like the work that we're doing, please consider supporting us on Patreon. It's like the only way we make money.
Yes, please.
I mean, apart from our full-time jobs, but so go to patreon.com/anatomy of marriage and please support us financially. I'm not ashamed to ask for.
No, I'm not either.
Help.
If you like it and it's been helpful, share the podcast or give us money. Either
and
one.
If you don't support it, we'll stop. How do you like that?
I quit.
How do you like that?
All right, people. Thanks. Peace out.
See you later.